My life. Journey part. E-life is a road that begins long before we understand its shape. My journey started in a place filled with simple mornings, familiar faces, and dreams that were still small and quiet. And in those early days, I did not know the direction my life would take. I only knew that every sunrise brought something new to learn, something new to feel, and something new to become. And I grew up surrounded by voices that shaped my thinking. Some voices were gentle, filled with hope and encouragement. Others were strict, reminding me that life is not always easy. And these voices became part of my memory. They guided me through the first lessons of courage and patience. 1. Every step I took, every mistake I made, and every success I felt became a piece of the person I would one day become. Childhood was a time of curiosity. I remember moments of running freely, moments of sitting quietly, and imagining a future filled with possibilities. I did not fully understand responsibility then. I only understood wonder. The world felt big and open. I wanted to explore every corner of it. As I grew older, I discovered that life begins to change faster than we expect. People change, places change, and even our hearts change. I started noticing the challenges that stood in front of me. Some were small and easily solved. Others felt like mountains that I was not ready to climb. But life has a way of teaching us strength through experience. Each challenge taught me something important. Each difficulty pushed me to grow stronger. There were moments of happiness that lit up my path. Moments with friends. Moments when I succeeded at something I thought was impossible. These memories became warm lights that I carry with me even now. They remind me that joy can be found even in the simplest moments. But life also taught me about struggle. I learned that people do not always stay. Opportunities do not always come easily. Sometimes the world feels heavy. Sometimes the road feels lonely. Yet, even in those dark times, I kept walking. I kept believing that there was something ahead worth moving toward. Every stage of my life added another chapter to my journey. Childhood taught me wonder. Youth taught me discovery. Challenges, and with every passing year, I learned more about who I am and where I want to go. This is the beginning of my long journey. A journey filled with lessons, emotions, victories, and transformations. A journey that continues to shape me every single day. RA's time moved forward. I stepped into a new phase of my life, a phase where the world felt wider, and my choices began to shape my future more clearly. Leand. These were the years when I started understanding that life is not only about dreams, but also about effort, responsibility, and finding a direction that truly belongs to me. In this period, I began to look at myself with new eyes. I started asking deeper questions. Who am I becoming? What do I want to achieve? What kind of person do I want to be? These questions did not always have easy answers. Sometimes they made me feel uncertain. Sometimes they made me feel excited, but they pushed me forward, and they made me reflect on the values I wanted to carry with me. So, I met people who left strong impressions on my heart. Some became friends who walked beside me for a long time. Others stayed only for a short moment, but their influence stayed longer than their presence. Each person taught me something. Some taught me kindness. Some taught me patience. Some taught me caution. And some taught me the power of believing in myself, even when everything around me felt unclear. Boundary. During this time, I started to discover my strengths. There were moments when I surprised myself by achieving things I did not think I could do. I learned that determination can open doors that seem locked. I learned that perseverance can turn difficulty into opportunity. And I learned that effort, even when unnoticed, builds a foundation that becomes strong enough to support greater dreams. Of course, growing up also brought challenges that felt overwhelming. There were days when I felt lost, days when I felt like I was moving without direction. Sometimes I made mistakes that hurt me. Sometimes I trusted people who did not deserve that trust. But even those moments had purpose. They helped me understand the importance of boundaries. But they helped me see the difference between real support and shallow words. They taught me that growth often comes through pain, not comfort. There were also moments of silence. Moments when I sat alone, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was still ahead. In those quiet moments, I realized that understanding myself is a lifelong journey. I do not have to know everything immediately. I do not have to be perfect. I just have to keep moving, learning, and becoming better than I was yesterday. Passing year, I felt my identity becoming clearer. I learned to value my own voice. I learned to stand for what felt right to me. And I learned that even when life becomes difficult, moving forward, even one small step at a time, brings me closer to the person I want to become. This part of my journey was about shaping my character, discovering my values, and understanding the strength that exists within me. It was about learning that life is not measured only by the big moments, but also by the small choices we make every single day. As I moved further along my path, life began to reveal another layer of complexity. This was a period where choices became more serious and experiences began to have deeper meaning. I started to understand that every decision I made was shaping not only my present, but also my future. The world felt bigger, and so did my responsibilities. There came a time when I had to face situations that demanded maturity. I realized that life does not always wait for us to feel ready. It pushes us into moments that require courage, even when we feel uncertain. Meaned. I began learning how to manage pressure, how to balance expectations, and how to keep my mind steady even when things around me felt unstable. Lemdia. This stage of my journey also brought new opportunities. Some opportunities came quietly, as small chances that could easily be ignored. Others arrived suddenly, forcing me to act quickly. Mamda, I learned that opportunities do not always appear in perfect form. Sometimes they come disguised as challenges, and sometimes they require sacrifice. But every opportunity taught me something valuable. Mandist. They helped me recognize my abilities and pushed me to reach beyond my comfort zone. I also experienced disappointment during this time. I faced situations where things did not go the way I planned. Meaned. There were goals I worked hard for, but still could not achieve. There were moments when I questioned myself, wondering if I was good enough or strong enough. But these disappointments played a powerful role in my growth. Lamed. They showed me that failure is not the end. It is a teacher, a mirror, and sometimes a turning point. With each setback, I learned patience, I learned resilience. I learned that success often comes to those who keep trying when others stop. In this phase, relationships continued to shape me. I met new people who entered my life with new lessons. Some inspired me with their strength. Some taught me the importance of empathy. Others taught me the value of independence. Through all these interactions, I learned that people influence our journey in different ways, and each connection leaves a mark. Sometimes the mark is warm and comforting. Ooh, loo. Sometimes it is sharp and painful, but every mark adds definition to who we are. I also learned about responsibility toward myself. I began taking my goals more seriously. I understood that growth requires discipline. It requires effort, even when motivation is low. I started setting stronger expectations for myself and working harder to meet them. Not because anyone else forced me, but because I started to believe in the life I wanted to build. Multon. There were moments in this stage when I felt proud of my progress. Moments when I looked back and realized how far I had come. But there were also moments when I felt unsure. Moments when the road ahead seemed confusing. Life. Life has a way of mixing clarity and confusion together. It challenges us to move forward even when the next step is unknown. This part of my journey strengthened me from within. Zind. It taught me how to face reality with courage. It taught me that growth requires both struggle and hope. It taught me that every step, even the difficult ones, is guiding me toward the person I am becoming. Man's part. See as I continued moving through life. I entered a stage where my identity began to feel more solid. The lessons from my earlier years started blending into something clearer. Mumdia. I felt myself becoming more aware of who I was, what I valued, and what kind of future I wanted to build. This part of the journey was not about speed. It was about direction, purpose, and understanding the power of choice. During this time, I learned that life is not a straight road. It bends, it curves, it rises, and it falls. Some days feel smooth and easy. Other days feel heavy and complicated. But with every twist in the path, Lumbia, I grew more confident that I could handle whatever came my way. Challenges no longer felt like walls. They felt like doors that required patience, courage, and determination to open. Memd. In these years, I also discovered the importance of self-trust. There were moments when I had to rely on my own judgment, moments when I had to stand alone and make decisions without anyone's approval. I worried about disappointing people, but eventually, I learned that trusting myself is the foundation of real strength. Mond. Life becomes clearer when you believe in your own ability to grow through every experience. This part of my journey also brought dreams into sharper focus. Dreams that once felt distant began to feel within reach. Binda. I started imagining a life where I could combine passion with purpose. A life where my hard work could turn into something meaningful. I knew it would not be easy, but I felt ready to try. I understood that dreams are built step by step, with effort, dedication, and consistency. At the same time, I faced moments of emotional struggle. There were times when fear tried to slow me down. Tons. Times when doubt tried to silence my confidence. Times when I questioned whether I was on the right path. But I learned that these moments are a natural part of growth. They come to test our commitment. Lenas. They come to remind us that strength is not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep going even with fear present. I also learned more about relationships during this stage. I saw that not everyone is meant to stay forever. Dimes. Some people leave quietly, some leave suddenly, and some remain with us for years, shaping us in ways we do not always notice at the time. I learned that letting go is sometimes just as important as holding on. Mond. Life becomes lighter when we stop forcing connections that are not meant for us. There were also moments of deep peace during this period. Moments when everything felt balanced. Bunged moments when I could appreciate the progress I had made. I began to understand the beauty of small victories, waking up with hope, learning something new, becoming more patient, becoming kinder. These small steps created a foundation that made me stronger inside. Through this stage, I learned to enjoy the journey instead of constantly worrying about the destination. Minder. I realized that growth does not always show immediately. Sometimes it builds quietly, beneath the surface, preparing us for the next chapter of life. This part of my story shaped my mindset. It taught me that resilience comes from showing up every day. It taught me that progress comes from consistency, and it taught me that a meaningful life is built through choices that match the person you want to become. Part. Wu Wei's life carried me forward. I entered a phase where responsibilities grew, you know, dreams matured, and my understanding of the world deepened. This was a time when I realized that life is not simply about moving forward. It is about moving forward with intention. Every choice became more meaningful. Every step felt connected to something larger than the moment itself. In this stage, I started to recognize the weight of my own potential. I understood that my actions could shape my future in powerful ways. I learned that discipline is not a burden, but a gift that helps us build the life we imagine. Beamed. There were days when motivation was strong and days when it was weak, but I pushed myself to stay consistent. I realized that success belongs to those who continue, even when the feeling fades. But these years also taught me the value of time. I learned that time moves faster than we expect. Moments slip away quietly, taking their chance with them. I understood that wasting time is not just losing hours. It is losing opportunities, growth, and experiences that cannot return. This realization pushed me to become more focused. I designed my days more carefully. I worked with purpose instead of drifting. Bendia. I also experienced moments of clarity during this part of my journey, moments when something inside me clicked and I suddenly understood myself better. I saw patterns in my behavior mend. I saw what made me strong and what made me weak. I saw how my thoughts influenced my progress. These insights helped me make better decisions. They helped me identify what needed to change and what deserved to stay. Dawn friendships and connections continued to transform. Some relationships grew deeper, built on shared respect and genuine understanding. Others faded naturally as paths separated. I realized that people grow at different speeds. Sometimes two paths run together. Sometimes they drift apart. I learned to accept this without resentment. Losing people no longer felt like a failure. It felt like a natural part of life. In this period, challenges became more complex. They were no longer simple obstacles. They were tests of character. Some challenges required patience. Some required confidence. Some required letting go of old habits that no longer served me. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed. Moments when I questioned whether I could handle everything. Sengda. But each challenge shaped me. Each one sharpened my mind and strengthened my heart. I also learned the importance of inner peace. Life becomes difficult when the mind is crowded with worry. I discovered that calmness is not something found outside. It is something created within. I learned to breathe through stress. I learned to step back and see the bigger picture. Peace once separate it cannot control. Mendia. Accepting. I learned that peace comes from accepting what is instead of fighting what I cannot control. During this time, I started building a vision of the future I wanted. It was not a perfect dream, Belinda. It was a realistic one, built on understanding, experience, and growth. I imagined a life where my actions aligned with my values, a life where I could look back and feel proud of how far I had come, a life where I lived with purpose, not simply passing the days. This part of my journey taught me maturity. It taught me responsibility. It taught me to trust the process, even when the results were not visible. Melinda. It taught me that growth does not always come loudly, quietly, shaping us from the inside until one day we look in the mirror and realize we have changed.